Recording in progress.
Great. Welcome everybody to the Marin Municipal Water District Board meeting for January 20th, 2026. I'd like to call the meeting to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Good evening. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Director Diana Mayer.
Here.
Vice President Larry Russell.
Here.
Director Matt Sampson.
Here.
Director Jed Cush. I'm sorry.
I like it.
Ranjiv Cush.
Like it.
Sorry.
I like Jed. Now I'm here.
And Board President Jed Smith.
Present. May I please have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
And a roll call, please, Terry.
Director Mayer.
Aye.
Vice President Russell.
Aye.
Director Sampson.
Yes.
Director Cush.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye. And may I please have any public comments on non-agenda matters?
There are none.
Great. Any directors or general managers announcements? Maybe we'll start with our general manager, Ben Hornstein.
None this evening.
Great. And let's go around. For me, it's left to right. So I guess, Diana, you'd be first.
Me?
Yeah.
Me? Yeah. So I wanted to just give a little bit of an update on what's going on legislatively. So there is a bill, the Water Resources Development Act of 2024. I think it gets repassed like every 2 years or refunded. In the bill this year is an earmark from Congressman Huffman for Marin for $2 million. And there is up to a possibility of getting an additional like $28 million. The bill allows funding for certain kinds of projects, of which ARC would be one of. ARC would qualify for the kinds of projects that the bill funds, if that makes sense. So getting the $2 million would sort of allow us to go down that pathway of getting more money from the federal legislation, WRDA. And then that would also could kind of, I think Ben's put it, grease the skids for getting Proposition 4 funds for ARC as well. And so there could possibly be a significant amount of money between WRDA and Prop 4. And the bill has now passed the House and the Senate, and it's sitting on the president's desk. So we're just waiting for it to be signed. And then I've been talking to staff a little bit about getting ready to maybe do some lobbying on Capitol Hill to try and get some Prop 4 funds. But things are looking really good for at least getting a nice subsidy on the ARC project.
Who's next?
Larry? I guess.
Yeah, Larry, and then Ranjiv, and then Matt.
Okay. No, I haven't. No.
Jed, I do have a short comment. I just wanted to flag a productive collaboration with Adrienne and her comms team that I really feel is increasing awareness of our water conservation and efficiency programs in the Ross Valley. Briefly, the comms team has been providing short program descriptions to town managers and homeowner associations in San Anselmo, Ross, and Kentfield that are included in their weekly or monthly newsletters. So now in San Anselmo, for example, our rebate programs for water saving improvements are a weekly feature. They come out every week with the town manager's newsletter. And last week, Adrienne and Carrie worked together to present our water conservation program at the annual meeting of the Kent Woodlands Property Owners Association. As you know, this is where we have a lot of our larger homes and lots. And so water conservation and efficiency is certainly an important topic for all of them. I think these efforts will contribute to awareness and education regarding responsible water management, and there may be opportunities to expand this outreach channel to other jurisdictions. Adrienne, it'd be great to hear from you how that presentation went to the Homeowners Association.
Sure. So it actually ended up being a Zoom meeting. So I have to give all credit to Carrie for the presentation. I did help her to prepare for that, but she did a lot of work to actually pull data, water usage data specific to that HOA to really give them a clear picture of kind of where they stand and where there may be areas to fine tune their water usage amongst property owners in that community. And it was a really well received presentation from what Carrie briefed me on, and some surprising data for some folks that attended the meeting. And definitely there was interest in learning more about our programs. She really highlighted the CAP program and the opportunity for property owners to have staff come to their homes to talk more about their water use and where they could help them to find improvement. So overall, seems like it went really well. And we're also working on some targeted mailings now focused in that area as well. So we're curious to see how that goes.
Super encouraging. Thank you.
Great. President Smith, I just have a quick one. I was able to spend some time on the watershed and was able to notice all of the work being done at the Jack Gibson tanks and all the trench work and everything going in there. It's really impressive to see. Really good to see that project moving on. So appreciate the work for us keeping that moving.
Terrific. Thank you, group. We'll move on to our board committee reports. Is there any committee reports to report? None. Okay, terrific. Off to our consent items. We have 3 consent items this evening. One is the adoption of the minutes from the January 6th board meeting. The second is approval of the general manager's report from December 2025. And the third is an amendment to the general manager's contract. And I'll just make one comment on that. I appreciate, Ben, you stepping up and willing to stick through the year. And I see this as a nominal economic move, but very supportive of our process. So are there any comments on the consent matters? Okay, terrific. And may I please have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Great. And a roll call, please, Terry.
Oh, yes. Director Mayer,
Aye.
Vice President Russell,
Aye.
Director Sampson,
Yes.
Director Kush,
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye. Terrific. All right. So now we'll move on to our regular items. The first one is item 7A, which is our early detection rapid response contract.
Good evening, board members. Sean Horn, Director of Watershed Resources. The item before you is the Early Detection Rapid Response Contract, and I'll just note that the Early Detection Rapid Response Program was developed out of our collaboration with our one-TAM partners back in 2016 when our public land managers came together and started talking about how to better steward these lands in Marin County, thinking about invasive plants and understanding that these invasive plants aren't staying to the jurisdictional boundaries that we have, and started to think about how can we collectively work together to better manage for the health of the mountain. And so early detection rapid response was born out of some really good work from staff at all these public agencies. It was really spearheaded as part of the one-TAM collaboration. And over the years, we've been able to do a tremendous amount of work along fire roads and trails, really looking for a long list of invasive plants that can degrade our habitat and ecological value of our natural resources on the mountain. So the early detection rapid response contract is somewhat new. It is supporting our biodiversity, fires, and fuels integrated plan, which has some of the management targets around invasive plant management. It's also supporting our e-bike pilot. So you'll recall that when we approved the e-bike pilot, a component of that was that the district would survey all of our fire roads over that 2-year period with the EDRR protocol and manage for those listed plant species if they are found. So this particular contract, we put an RFP out, a request for proposals, in November. We received 3 qualified responses. Staff reviewed those and met with the consulting teams and identified Pronounsky and Chatham as the most qualified and ready to work with the district on this project. And so the staff is recommending that we execute a contract with Pronounsky and Chatham Ecological for $195,000 and $439. And this would be for a 2-year period, and it would allow for us to complete work specifically on fire roads, first and foremost, and then secondarily on our trails. And the reason it's secondarily on our trails is that we still do have some supporting capacity through the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy and their staff to help conduct the survey work and the treatment along trails. So this is kind of an example of one TAM and the partnership that we have. We bring resources back from that collaboration that help steward Mount Tam, but we want to bolster that with a contract to support the BIFIP implementation, as well as what we kind of agreed to in the pilot program for e-bikes. So with that, we'll take any questions you might have about this particular contract.
Great. Matt?
Good. Thanks, Jed. Sean, thank you for that. And thank you for staying on top of this. And it's good to see too that money's being used for different projects, able to support it and leveraging that as opposed to just having to solo it like that. Question, can this contract be renewed or extended based on performance?
Yeah, so I think the district could choose to amend it if we had more work to do, and when we'd be coming back to the board if it was going above the currently approved contract amount.
Okay, great. And then you said a different firm is doing the work under the Conservancy for our trails, a different firm?
So the Conservancy historically had some seasonal staff that they would actually hire to conduct this work, and that was led by a botanist that's full-time with the Conservancy. Coming out of COVID, their staffing model changed a bit. They really had some severe impacts financially, and that required that they reevaluate kind of how they support some of these programs. And one of those programs that was impacted was EDRR. So some of those seasonal staff that they historically have, they're no longer retaining. And so we do have one staff person who helps kind of guide the overarching EDRR program on all public lands that works at the Conservancy and conducts the surveys on our trails.
Gotcha. So this information is going to be shared quite, okay.
Yeah, and that's a great point. All of this data goes into CalFlora. That's a database that all these public land managers use to map these invasive plants. So that kind of lives over time and can be utilized by our staff and other public agency staff to help guide their management.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Any other comments?
Yeah, Jed, I have just a couple of questions for Sean. Sean, when you talk about invasives, I tend to just immediately think about broom, but I've heard from you that actually there are a lot of other invasives that in some cases we're even more concerned about than broom. Could you just speak a little to that? Because I think, you know, we hear a lot about the costs of managing the watershed and where those expenses are allocated. And I think we just want to make sure that everyone's aware of how much effort we put into the environmental side of management.
Yeah, so the philosophy behind the early detection rapid response is just that. It's early detection rapid response. So with broom has been around for decades, and it has invaded the watershed decades ago and has kind of expanded to a point where now managing it is very costly. The intention behind early detection rapid response is to find these non-native plant species early and to manage them so that they don't spread into kind of a long-term management issue. Also, the power behind the collaboration is that other public land management agencies might have different tools in their toolbox to manage some species. So there is one particular plant species on state parks land that they are able to manage with herbicide, and they protect it from coming into the district's watershed lands, which is a huge benefit for us. And that collaborative kind of discussion around management approaches really is beneficial for the community.
Great.
And reduces long-term costs.
Yes, and hopefully prevents the situation that we currently have with broom. Now, will this contract only cover the fire roads that are under our management? Is there any reason to think about expanding it to areas covered by the other agencies just to ensure that, you know, we're being holistic in our response?
Yeah, so the EDRR program covers all the public lands. There's a working group that's made up of botanists from the district, from Marin County Parks, from state parks, from national parks, and each entity has a different approach. So Marin County Parks has kind of full-time staff that do a lot of this work. National Parks hires some seasonal staff to do some of this work. State Parks relies on contracts like this to do some of this work, and the district has kind of a hybrid. We have staff that do this work, we have seasonals that do this work, and then this is kind of bolstering that with the focus on kind of completing our BIFIP and e-bike targets.
Okay, so the other agencies also have their own active programs. You're not concerned about gaps that?
No, I think this partnership through One TAM and the way that they work together is really filling those gaps and making sure that we're having discussions around what plants are emerging on other public lands and how we can collectively manage those.
Thank you.
Then
Any other comments?
There are no further comments from the board.
Okay, terrific. Any public comments, please?
There are no comments from the public either.
Great. Moving on. So this is this an approval item?
That's correct.
So may I have a motion, please, to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Great. And a roll call, please.
Director Mayer,
Aye.
Vice President Russell,
aye.
Director Sampson,
Yes.
Director Kush,
Aye.
and President Smith.
Aye. Terrific. All right. Thank you, Sean. And we'll move on to our item 7B, which is approval of the One TAM 2026-2027 work plan.
Yeah. I'm going to pull up a presentation for you this evening. You'll recall that the district brought the One TAM MOU and strategic plan to the board in April. And so this is a continuation of that discussion and focusing in on the work plan for the next 2 years. So the partnership, the One TAM partnership, is made up of state parks, national parks, Marin County parks, and supported by the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy. It has this geographic area generally of Mount Tam as the focus. We do have public lands such as Point Reyes National Seashore and Golden Gate National Recreation Area adjacent to those areas. So some of the collaboration does kind of bleed out into those areas as well. But when One TAM was formed initially, the focus really was on the mountain itself. And over the years, that collaboration has grown to those other public lands as well. Under the work plan and under the strategic plan, there's kind of these core components: projects, programs, partnerships, philanthropic and investments, communications, and science and management. And that kind of makes up the portfolio of work that One TAM collaborates on. It is governed, the governance structure for One TAM is really guided by this MOU that was brought to the board in April. That's kind of shepherded by the executive committee, which is made up of staff at each agency. There's also the strategic plan that's kind of guided by the steering committee that was accompanying that MOU when you approved it in April. And the work plan is developed through collaborative discussions around each of those core components at the working group level and all the way up to the executive level, and developed, and that's what's in front of you this evening to consider. The One TAM MOU is really where kind of that long-term strategy sits, and the changes that have been made there is just kind of some acknowledgement that Point Reyes National Seashore does benefit from the One TAM collaboration, and they're represented by the Golden Gate National Recreation Area and their staff that support that. Also that there's continuing interest and engagement with the Federated Indians of Great and Rancheria. So this is something we briefly discussed when you approved the MOU. And so the executive committee is meeting quarterly with FIGR representatives to have discussions around kind of long-term collaboration and how that can build over time. Mount Tam remains the focus of the partnership under the MOU, but it kind of reaffirms the Conservancy's kind of role as the backbone. And what we were able to do in the strategic plan is kind of get a better focus. So this is a collaboration that's 10 years in. And so this was an update of the MOU when you approved it. And that was the first time that had been updated in 10 years. So that was a big step and kind of a big acknowledgement of the collaboration being meaningful for the community. The strategic plan that was put forth at that time really is kind of the vision of how we're going to steward the mountain together. It really looks at how these public agencies work with the community and empower them in different ways and engage them to be part of the stewardship of this landscape. And when the strategic plan was being written this time, we were really trying to simplify the portfolio. As One TAM grew, there was a lot of this One TAM will do that. One TAM can do that too. And it just kind of grew to this kind of, we can't do everything. Not every wish list can be into the strategic plan or the annual work plan. And that was kind of what we started to see as this partnership matured. So there's a real interest and attempt to focus kind of what we can do in 2 years or 5 years with the strategic plan. In the annual plan that's before you, we're really looking at near-term priorities. So talking with our working groups around what do they think they can achieve in the next year or the next 2 years. The projects and priorities were refined to be kind of in that realistic time frame. And we really focused on how we can strengthen that governance structure at the committee level and the decision making that's happening so that we can use that to guide resource allocations of individual staff and the work plans or the portfolios of work that they hold. And as I mentioned, the work plan is oriented around these kind of 6 areas of focus, that being landscape, scale, science, and management, projects, programs, partnerships, philanthropic investment or fundraising, and communications. The accomplishments that we just want to highlight through this collaboration really is, the fundraising component that is brought forth in this collaboration is very real. The One TAM partners were able to bring in 4.2 million in the last couple of years for forest resiliency work, and that came primarily from the Wildlife Conservation Board. Previous grants in that space came from CAL FIRE Forest Health, as well as the Coastal Conservancy. There's been other funding that has been coming to the partnership in various forms, and there's a lot of local funding that comes through partnerships and philanthropic approaches. The kind of changes and success, I would say, is Marin Wildlife Watch rather, has been updated. It used to be something that volunteers came to Corte Madera, and actually our IT department would set up computers for them, and they would sit there and watch what wildlife was caught on what cameras and catalog that. It's been put into kind of an online environment now, also being supported with some AI technology. And actually, we've improved our ability to catalog. We were at one point kind of 5 million photos behind, and we've now caught up in this approach. And so this is an incredible amount of data that's collected around wildlife on the mountain, and this improvement is really a big win. Also, the Tamalpais Bee Lab, this is often run out of Sky Oaks, is another community engagement program that has been very successful, and in this last year, even identified a bee species that hadn't been seen on the mountain in decades. There's been a new focus on gearing up to support various youth programs, and so looking at how we can engage with the Canal District and Marin City and other community groups and bring them to the mountain or the mountain to them in some cases. There's a lot of work going on around our early detection rapid response that we just talked about. Increasing capacity to hire has been a focus around bringing folks in when we get these grants. So there's been a forest fellow that's been supporting some of the TAM van outreach that's happening. And then this last year, we completed the Peak Health 2.0 and had some public events for that. And then big win over this last year was that MOU update and the strategic plan as well. That was a bobcat. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like my cat, though.
Yeah, sort of. They're a little bigger than that.
Yeah. And so what we want to focus on for how does this affect Marin Water? Kind of this partnership, how does this bring resources to the work that we do? One of the key ones that we've talked a lot with the board about is our One TAM Forest Health strategy and how that's really bolstered the work that we're doing on the mountain and positioned us for block grant funding at the state level. And so continuing to move that forward, that's been a great kind of a tool for us to scale this work. And there's a focus on now scaling into the prescribed fire space. So how do we use the forest health strategy to have those conversations across jurisdictional lands with a focus on prescribed fire being a tool for stewardship? Community science, as I mentioned, the Marin Wildlife Watch is engaging volunteers and disseminating important information. Forest restoration and prescribed fire community hikes has been something that the district's hosted with support from the Conservancy and One TAM partners. There's been environmental education field trips and other volunteer opportunities, and One TAM helps get the word out to the community and bring additional people in to support that type of work. The early detection rapid response, we really have benefited from that collaboration, that expertise that comes from technical working groups. Monitoring our bat population, that's another component of our e-bike pilot, but this is actually building off of a bat monitoring protocol and program that was developed as part of our One TAM collaboration around peak health, recognizing there was a data gap with our understanding of bat species. And now the district is kind of bolstering that data collection effort to a greater level with our e-bike pilot bat study. The collaboration is also starting to think about, as we implement prescribed fire, how do we begin to monitor those project sites and locations to better our understanding of native plant response, as well as reduction in wildfire risk. And then monitoring rare plants to inform our management was a objective of our peak health and has been continued forward and has really supported the district's data collection on the watershed itself. So with that, we'll take any questions you might have, and this is an action item to approve the 2-year work plan for the One TAM partnership.
Great, thank you, Sean. Why don't we go in reverse order this time? So go with Diana first. Any comments on the One TAM approval?
No, looks great. Thank you very much, Sean.
Yep.
Exciting.
Larry?
No, thanks.
Yep.
Sean, it looks great. I don't have any specific, but questions. I have like sort of a bit of a random thought, so I'm just going to kind of inflict that on us. A few months ago, probably around the time the settlement was being ironed out for the bike pilots, Paul De Silva, who's a trustee for the Marin Community College, Marin Community College, and he was a former professor there, wrote an editorial in the Marin IJ called One Health. And he was trying to articulate a concept that's gaining traction in some areas thinking about environmental health and human health in different silos is not always maybe the best way. And, there's actually a lot of linkage or influence between environment, human health, and that may be worth considering more as we consider the management of our resources. So my question is, do you ever think, One TAM is such a unique type of, to me at least, entity that brings all the different stakeholders together. It has this 10-year now, strong track record. Do you ever think, that there would be an opportunity down the road? I'm not saying in this 2-year strategic plan, but down the road to consider concepts like One Health that move beyond, the very immediate, very direct focus on the environment. Just wondering what your thoughts are.
I mean, it's a big concept and, a lot of, I think, variation that comes into that One Health concept. I think the One TAM peak health is really a component of it and will always be a component of it. And it's probably the focus of the One TAM collaboration is on the stewardship of the land, connecting people to that land, educating them about the need for the protection of it, as well as data collection around the resources. So I think that feeds into that One Health piece, but I think that is the kind of strength of One TAM is the natural resource land management stewardship side, and that's what they can contribute to that One Health equation, I believe.
Yeah, it would take a lot more collaboration with others that had the ability to think about the other side of health, human health. But anyway, after reading his editorial, which I recommend to everybody, it's quite interesting. It made me think about the potential for at some point integrating that into One TAM. But thank you.
Sean, thank you again for this. Piqued my curiosity around the Peak Health Report 2.0. Is it the same type of data sets, or was it expanded at all in terms of what data was captured?
Yeah, it was expanded drastically. So one of the things that came out of Peak Health 1.0 was we didn't have a fine scale veg map for all of Marin County. The Water District actually had developed a fine scale veg map for the watershed lands, but not all other public lands. So that was a big lift coming out of Peak Health 1.0 was to do the LiDAR that was required to then do the vegetation analysis to get that fine scale veg map that then informed that forest health strategy. And so there was also recognition in that Peak Health 1.0 that we didn't know everything we needed to know about our forested landscape. And so this kind of started to fill some of those data gaps there, as well as mentioning our rare plant monitoring came out of that need for more data around serpentine outcrops and barrens. And so that was something that was collected between 1.0 and 2.0. The bat study was another one. 1.0, we didn't have any bat data, I believe. And so 2.0, there was a real interest in, collecting data over time and building that in. And now as we're going forward, we're thinking of trying to figure out what's the appropriate frequency to be updating that report, because there wasn't a lot of change. That was one of the things they were trying to measure was the health of these different resources. And 2 years isn't ecologically that meaningful. And so how long do you need to collect new data before you update that type of a report is a discussion that's kind of ongoing. Recognizing that we'll always be sharing that data out to the community, but to do and produce that peak health report is a behemoth effort from staff at all the public agencies.
Right. Do we see any big changes on our fine vegetation mapping from 2 years ago on our own lands?
So not big changes, no, because we have done this in different periods, and I don't have the exact dates in my head, but it was like 2007, 2010 or something like that, that kind of frequency. What we were able to see is kind of areas of impact from sudden oak death, like canopy gaps that were beyond the district's land. So you can kind of see where those impacts were, and that can guide other public land managers in terms of what they were working on. But it's a tremendous, data set now. So as we do management of the watershed, you could imagine doing another fine scale. So under the BIFIP, we're managing the watershed, doing forest restoration, prescribed fire. If you were to do a fine scale veg map update in say 10 years, we would expect to see a lot of change that would be meaningful.
Absolutely. So with the data, again, we're going to be sharing it. Obviously, it's under the One TAM collaborative. But when we look at something as granular as the BAT study component of it, are all One TAM agencies now using the same, I guess, group or consultant to study bats as we are, or are we going a little more in depth?
The bat study is actually really interesting in that we're using this North American bat monitoring methodology. This is actually a national database and methodology that allows kind of the United States to be gridded up, and then you can collect data in any of those grids and push it up to this national database, and it starts to help fill our national understanding of bat species and how they're doing in different regions of the United States. The One TAM partnership utilized that in the last 3 or 4 years as they collected bat data. Nobody has done it as extensive as the district is now doing it, though.
Right.
So this will be a tremendous lift for Marin County in terms of their understanding of bat species.
Right. I think it's really good government when we're allowing other people to use our data and vice versa, so we don't have to spend the same money on to do the thing twice. So I appreciate the effort for that, and I'm in support. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Sean, I just want to throw out kudos and support for the board over the years that helped create One TAM. Larry, you were in the seat when it happened. This is a seminal organization that's shown leadership and has been attempted to be replicated around the country. So proud to be a part of it and looking forward to working closer with you as we go forward. This is an approval item, so are there any public comments before we go to approval?
There are none.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Director Mayer,
Aye.
Vice President Russell,
Aye.
Director Sampson,
Yes.
Director Kush,
Aye.
and President Smith.
Aye.
Thank you.
You can call me Ranjiv Smith if you want. Okay, great. Thank you, Sean, for that. And we'll move on to our Board of Directors committee assignments and agency assignments. I want to start off by, first of all, thanking the staff and the team and the board for being there for me today. I'm really sorry that I could not be there, but I could not. I want to thank Vice President Larry Russell for being willing to step in if it didn't work, and Terry and the audiovisual team for putting this together. So this is a full team effort, and I think that's reflected in our committee reports and assignments, which are shared. And I'll start with the planning committee, which Larry has served so well as chair, and will be moving Ranjiv into the vice chair position. On the watershed committee, I'm looking forward to Matt being the chair of that committee and Diana being the vice chair. For finance, Diana will be shifting with me to be the chair of that committee. I will be the vice chair and supportive as we go through some pretty important financial decisions this year. I'm happy to take comments on that, or I can move on to the rest of the committee reports. I'll move on. For the Sonoma Marin Water Advisory Council. It has been a extremely important experience for me, and I think one that has been productive for Marin and Sonoma. I will have my last meeting as leading Marin's representation on that committee in the next meeting, and then going forward for the rest of the year, we'll hand that off to Ranjiv, and we will switch seats. And so I'm really happy, Ranjiv, that you have taken a broader perspective with your work with Aqua and with Supervisor Rabbit, et cetera. And I'm looking forward to you serving us well in that role. On one TAM, I will move into the lead position on that with Ranjiv as the alternate. For the Marin Water and North Marin Water Collaboration Ad Hoc Committee, we'll stick with Larry and Diana on that committee. For the Lagunitas TAC, Matt will chair that, and will be the representative for Marin Water, and I will be his support and alternate. For North Bay Watershed Association, we will have Matt as the lead and Larry as the alternate. For North Bay Water Reuse Authority, Larry will be the lead, Ranjiv will be the alternate. And for Tamales Bay, Diana will be the lead and Matt will be the alternate. I think it's fairly even and level. And if anyone has comments, is this an approval item, Terry?
That is correct.
Okay. Open to any comments, as I'm sure some of this is new to everybody, but if not, I have public comment, I guess, and then we'll move to a roll call, to a vote to move to adopt it. No public comment.
That is correct. There is no public comment
Great.
on this.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Director Mayer,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
Director Sampson,
Yes.
Director Kush,
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
President Smith, I just want to say for the record that I expect that I get to bang the gavel now in our finance meeting. So
It's super
hands
exciting.
off the gavel. That's my gavel.
Hands off the gavel. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm looking forward to a productive year coming forward. And so future board meetings, we definitely have several committee meetings coming up this week. In my absence, and once again, I do apologize, although I am the alternate on the finance committee or the vice chair. I've asked Ranjiv to step in for me as I will not be able to attend. And I'd like to ask Ranjiv to not use the gavel and let Diana.
Diana, I will not use the gavel.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you for stepping up. I really appreciate that, and for everyone. We also have a planning committee meeting, watershed. We have a very busy few weeks ahead of us. Terry, can you please announce the upcoming meetings?
Yes, well, you pretty much did that for me, but I'm good. So nothing has changed according to what was on our on the agenda packet. The only thing also this week, we'll have the Tamales Bay Foundation meeting tomorrow at 3 p.m.
Great. And if you don't mind, Terry, if you could send the directors the dates and contact information and location information for their assignments, that would be great.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. I think we will move on.
Director Smith, I did want to just mention next week on Thursday, we do have a employee appreciation event in the morning. I do think Terry let the board know, but just reminding the board, we'll have breakfast. I think it'll be a very nice event for those of you that may be able to make it.
Terrific. I will be there. With that, I will bang my virtual gavel. We'll end this meeting. We'll go on to our closed session, and then we'll reconvene afterwards. So thank you very much, everybody.
And there is no public comment on the closed session item.
Great.
Thank you.
Ben, when are
The closed session adjourned at 6:07 with no reportable action.
Meeting adjourned.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.